and welcome. My name is Leslie and I'm going to be leading you into a Yin Yoga class. So with Yin Yoga, we're going to be holding different poses anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes each pose. So we will use support of blankets, blocks, even a bolster if you need it to hold these poses. At any time if you are in a painful situation, just soften that pose, come out of the pose, and rest. We want to make sure that we do feel a sensation of stretch without pain. So to begin our class, we're sitting in an easy seat. Now, if you're feeling a little much in your knees or in your hips, you can take a block or you can take a bolster, a large pillow that's firm, and place it underneath your hips to sit into your easy seat. Just relaxing, letting your legs come to the floor, and keeping a nice long spine. So you want to feel the contact of your sits bones coming down into the block or onto the mat. So just finding a comfortable position for your hands resting onto your legs. I want you to just close your eyes and take in your breath, breathing into the nose, out through the mouth. Starting to release the tension that we tend to hold in our bodies. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel your forehead soften, your brow soften. Feel your eyes soften, your eyelids. Let your teeth come apart. Feel your jaw relax. Let's take a deep breath through the nose and out through the nose. Good. Now let's bring our awareness down into our sits bones where we are pressing down into the mat or into that block. And as you breathe in, I want you to feel the energy rising up the spine all the way out through the crown of the head. As you exhale, feel the softness come down into the shoulders, keeping the long spine, but softening the shoulders, taking the tension out of the neck, allowing ourselves to feel the support of the ground beneath us, the legs pressing into the mat or using the mat as its form of support, feeling the contact of your body into the ground. Breathe in, expanding your belly, opening the rib cage, feeling it swell into the heart space. Exhale and release it out. Nose breathing if that's comfortable for you. Nice even breaths of 4 to 5 counts as you breathe in, 4 to 5 counts as you breathe out. Checking in with the mind chatter and things that go on in our mind. We want to start to focus solely on our body and breath. All other things are put away, put aside, or released away from our body by breathing it out. Telling yourself, I acknowledge this and I'm letting that go. And I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Notice the throat opening, and if you would like to practice the Ujjayi breathing, the warming breath in our body, you can make a soft ocean sound in the back of the throat. Think of it as air coming through a straw, in and out of the throat, making a little friction in the back of your throat. Now is a good time, if you do practice, setting an intention for the class. You can choose something, a positive intention of what, kind of consider what is it that you want from the class. And I'll offer to you contentment, the word contentment, just being okay, even in the uncomfortable places, even in the discomfort of maybe the quiet, maybe sometimes that's out of your comfort zone, or maybe that pose is not the most comfortable pose, but learning to accept that in that moment you are content, finding peace in the uncomfortable, finding acceptance in those places outside of our comfort zone. Contentment. I'm content. Big, nice belly breath. Bring it into the ribs, all the way up into our chest wall. Open that heart space. Breathe out anything not serving you. I am content. Now open your eyes. Just lower the chin down toward the collarbone as we start to hang the head over, keeping our shoulders relaxed, keeping the long spine and posture. Just feeling that back of the neck stretching just ever so softly. Breathing, not holding our breath. Now slowly bring your gaze back to the front, straight ahead from you. And we're going into an easy twist. So let's take our left hand to the right knee, and the right arm comes behind. So if it's hard for you to reach your fingertips to the floor from this position, just bend your elbow and place it behind your back with the palm out, and start to turn and look toward the back corner or the back of the room. If you have your hand pressing down into the mat, then I want you to try to bring that in as close as you can to the spine, and start to pull the right shoulder back as you start to turn your gaze back. And let's hold this breath. So breathing in and out. Continue with your even breaths. holding the twist. Good. Now we're going to slowly bring ourselves back to the center. And turn your head side to side just a little. Work out any tension maybe that you're getting from holding that stretch. Good. And then we're going to change sides, taking our right hand to the left knee. Again, sweeping that left arm behind us, bringing it in close to the spine as we can comfortably, and starting to pull the left shoulder back, taking our gaze toward the corner of the room, toward the back wall maybe, depending on how much you can rotate. And then we're going to breathe into this hold. So breathing in and breathing out. breath in, and as you exhale, bring yourself back to the center. And then turn your head side to side. Good. Bring your arms up, hands behind your head, open the elbows wide, heart space open wide. Press your head into your hands. Give a little tension there. Take a breath in. Exhale. Allow the head to fall back into the hands and hold. Beautiful. Slowly bring your gaze back to center and release your arms out to the side. Now, if you're on a block, go ahead and take yourself off of that block as we start to settle in to our hands and knees. Now, if you have sensitive knees, go ahead and grab your blanket. You can put your blanket underneath your knees if you wish. Coming into a tabletop position. So we want to stack the wrists under the shoulders, the knees under the hips, and begin to just work our spine out with a little cat-cow. Not necessarily a yin pose in cat-cow, but it's a good flexibility, warm up for the poses to come. So we're going to first start pressing the tailbone up, lowering the belly down. Let's open and widen that collarbone by pulling the shoulder blades toward one another as we lift the chin. Even the eye gaze comes up. Big breath in. As you exhale, round it up into cat. Press those palms into the mat. Tuck the chin to the collarbone. Crown is drawing toward the floor as we tuck the tailbone under. And let's go with our breathing in these positions. So breathing in, coming into cow, breathing out, going into cat. We're going to continue this for 10 cycles. Breathing in, starting at 10 right here. And breathing out. Let's get 2 more in and out. Last one. And out. Bring it back to neutral spine, tuck your toes, lift to downward facing dog, and just pedal the heels out, walking your dog. Press your knuckles and the pads of your fingers into the mat. Feel that engagement. Take it off your wrist and then start to lift the hips up higher as you press the hips back toward the heels. Stretching out the hamstrings, calves, glutes. Breathe it out. Shake your head and yes, no motions. Just breathe. Let it go. Let's take a couple more breaths here. Downward facing dog. Breathing in. Let it go. Last one. And out. both heels down for a nice stretch at the end. Lift those hips and then back to your knees. Beautiful. Tuck the toes together, knees open wide, coming into child's pose. If you have some tension and tightness in your child's pose, just play around with it. Sometimes a block will help, putting a block under your hips and for support. A bolster sometimes works to put under your chest and so that you come off a little bit from your heels. So you can play around with that. You can also place your forehead onto the block if you're not able to sink the chest all the way down and you need that extra support. So find what works for you, and we'll settle into this child's pose position. Arms are extended forward, chest is melting between the knees, forehead to the mat, and just breathe. So breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. breath in, start to lift your head off of the mat. Bring your hands back towards your shoulders, lift yourself up. Bring the knees back under the hips. And we'll go into our thread the needle pose. Bringing the right arm out to the side. Maybe you want to twist up and reach toward the ceiling or sweep the arm underneath. Bringing our shoulder down to the mat. Resting our head down. You have the option here if you would like to stretch the arms straight toward the short end of the mat. You can do that. You can also bring the arm behind the back if that is a comfortable position for you. We're going to stay here for about 2 minutes, so find what works best for you. And breathe. Place your hand underneath your shoulder, pressing into the mat. Lift your body up. Maybe a little raise out to the side with your arm before you bring it back down underneath your shoulder. And we'll go to the other side. Raise the arm out to the side or lift it up and sweep it underneath. Coming down onto the meaty part there of your deltoid muscle, squeezing in. So you can leave the hand here, stretch it out, or sweep it behind you. And come into your breath. Place your hand at the shoulder, pressing down into the mat, lifting up. Maybe you want to sweep that arm out one more time before bringing it back down to the mat. And now we'll just start to come to our forearms on the mat. Stretching out our legs and sinking the hips down, having the Sphinx pose. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale, let the lower body release. Feet are apart here, you're not trying to keep the toes together. Letting the lower back release down, pressing the elbows into the mat so you keep a nice long neck, shoulders down. Option to modify this one if it is a little much on your lower back. Sliding the elbows forward and lowering your belly a little lower will help with releasing some of that pressure. Start to lower ourselves all the way down, stacking the forearms in front of us and just resting the forehead down onto the forearms, releasing everything in the body and just breathing it out in this resting belly pose or crocodile pose. Just breathe, focus on your breath, and just releasing anything, any mind chatter going on in your mind. Just acknowledge and release and let go as you breathe and hold this pose. Take a breath in, bring your hands under your shoulders, lift yourself up into tabletop. And what we're going to do now is we're going to remove this bolster out of our way, or our blanket out of our way if it's underneath you. And go ahead and sit into a seated position, going into shoelace pose. So with shoelace, you can, if it's a little uncomfortable for you to be in the full shoelace pose, what you can do is go into a half shoelace pose. You can take one leg out straight and then just work on one leg at a time, letting the knees stack. So the top leg is bent, and you can stay there with that. Also, if you're feeling a little too much tension under the knee, you can fold or roll up your blanket, put it under there for support. Now to do the full shoelace, what we're gonna do is, it's gonna be a 4-minute hold. So if you're doing halves, you're gonna do 2 minutes on each side, and I'll let you know when to switch. If you're gonna go into the full shoelace, you're gonna stack the knees and just let the heels be away from you, from your glutes. And just, at that 2 minutes, we'll switch sides. I'll remind you when we're gonna switch sides. So 2 minutes on each side. Now, you have an option if you wanna grab a block to rest your hands onto. You have an option to do a little folding with this one as well. And so you can put your hands onto a block or onto the floor. You can even open them out a little wider if that feels more supportive to you, okay? So you choose what feels the best. Find your half or your full shoelace, and we'll breathe as we hold. As far as your gaze, you want to just take your eyes down toward the floor, a little out, more toward the fingertips, keeping a nice neutral neck and spine so they're in alignment. You're not just dropping the head down or trying to lift it up and strain yourself there. So just look at a nice neutral spot on the floor. You can close your eyes and just breathe as we hold. Keep in mind, if you do feel your hips starting to lift off the floor, back yourself up. Don't fold quite as far forward if you're in the folding position. We want to try to keep ourselves rooted down to the mat, keeping the spine lengthened up long, not giving in to that or rounding through the spine. Breath in, bring yourself up. We're going to switch sides. So whatever leg you had on top now goes to the bottom, either extending it out for the half shoelace or bringing it in and stacking both knees, settling down into those sits bones, feeling a rooting down. Let's keep a nice strong lower back, engaging through our belly. You can stay upright, you can start to lean forward. Use blocks, whatever you need for your support as you hinge over. Find a good edge to your stretch, as they say, and just find a focal point in a neutral spine position. Closing your eyes will help you to relax into this pose. Breathe. Take a breath in, start to bring yourself up. And unwind those legs. Put your hands behind you for support and just do a little side to side windshield wiper of the knees. And then we'll make our way back up onto our hands and knees. Again, if you want support from your blanket under your knees, you can place that there. We're going to go into a lizard pose. Now, I do suggest with lizard that use 1 or 2 blocks for support, and if you're not sure about how flexible you feel right now with that, we'll hold blocks to start with, just to kind of give you an idea of how to ease into this pose without some discomfort. This is a deep one, so you got to feel your way through it and ease your way, breathe into it. Taking your right foot and bringing it up to the front of the mat, turning the toes out for some balance support. You might want, I have my blocks in high, you might want to move them to medium while you're trying to use them. It depends on, the cork blocks are much more stable, or even flat would be good here, just so you don't flip with your blocks. Tuck your back toe and lift your leg out, kind of get a nice big long stretch, and then you can release the knee back down. Like I said, if you need a blanket there, then by all means put something under your knee. Now you can stay upright just like this, but you do want to remember, keep your chest forward, keep your gaze forward. Some people like to turn onto the blade of their foot, the pinky toe side of their foot, and open the knee out slightly. Now what you want to remember here though is you don't want to get off track with your joints and your alignment. So keeping your hips and your shoulders as if they're in the same track. That will keep you from, with your right leg forward, the tendency is to start to lean into it over to the right side, and then when you do that, you start to mess with that joint, the SI joint, and we don't want to do that. Now, you can also bring your blocks to flat or remove them and come down to your forearms. That's just a more intense stretch, and we are holding this for 2 to 3 minutes. So find where you feel you can tolerate, and you'll have to adjust to find what works for you. Let's keep the elbows underneath the shoulders. If you're down on the forearms, you can, I always like to interlace my fingers. I don't know, just kind of one of those things that makes me feel a little bit stronger. Now, on the other side of this, if you need to modify this more, then what you're going to do is you're going to lift up and hinge your hip back a little more over that back knee as you try to stay in this pose. And it is a tougher pose to do, so you can start to sink the hips down and just ease into it as much as you can. Taking breaks if you need to, just like lifting out of it just a little bit and then letting it shift forward and trying to hold that for as long as you can tolerate. This is definitely one you build into and you get into a little deeper as you start to stretch out and become more flexible. So let's hold this for another, let's say minute and a half. Breathe. Now we're going to start to bring ourselves up, hinging back over that knee with our hip, and then walk your foot in to the center. Go ahead and raise those blocks while we're trying to get into this half split pose, okay? So what you want to try to do with a half split pose is you're going to extend the front leg. Here are the things to be mindful of though. A lot of people you'll see kind of sinking back into it so that they can get down really low. So they move their booty way back and that way they can get really, really low. But let's not do that. Let's concentrate on keeping the hip over the knee, and we want to pull the hips into what we call when we square our hips, have them even. So with my right leg extended, I want to be mindful to keep the right hip pulled back and the left hip pulled forward, and the toes lifted. As I start with that long spine, starting to hinge, I'll lower my blocks down, maybe step them forward toward my foot, okay? Now, if you're feeling it in the back of the knee way too much, bend your knee, give yourself a break, okay? You don't have to, and don't lock your knee out because then you're just at risk of damaging something behind the knee. You don't want to do that. So then start to flatten the blocks. Maybe you can even bring the forearms down to the blocks, but that is pretty deep. So I like to keep my hands on the blocks or on the floor, reaching toward my heel, and you can soften the upper body at this point. You don't have to keep that straight back, but you want the lower back to stay strong. So we're going to hold it here. Just a couple minutes on each side. Good. Now take a breath in as you start to bring yourself up. Maybe you want to use those blocks for a little help there with that. Bend your knees, start to slide it back. We're going to come right back onto those knees. I want you just to sit back in hero's pose, not for a long period of time for this one. This is just a little transition as we get ready to come into the left side. So maybe you want to get a little wrist relaxation. Just make some circles with your wrists and breathe. Now, we're getting ready to go into the left side, starting with a lizard pose. So come up onto your knees. Let's grab those blocks, bring them over, turn them to medium. And we're gonna have hip over knee on the right side. Left side foot's gonna reach up there, turn the toes out toward the edge of your mat. Nice big wide stance there. And use your blocks for support as you tuck your back toe, stretch your leg out. Once you're in that nice stretched out position, let's lower the knee down gently and extend our foot out toward the end of the mat. So if you are feeling too much, remember you can always shift back and come out of it a little bit. Next, we're going to check in. We can leave that foot planted at an angle, or we can flip it to the pinky toe side, the blade of the foot. You can keep your chest forward, looking forward here and stay in this position, or you can start to play around with it. See if you can go down lower, either hands to the mat or forearms to blocks or forearms to mat. So it depends on you and your flexibility. Get into what works for you. Remember, we're keeping our shoulders and our hips in the same track. So you don't want to feel like you're shifting your weight into that left side and doing something all wonky there. We don't want to do that. So just looking with your gaze, maybe toward your hands, your thumbs. You can interlace your fingers, make prayer hands, or just keep your hands forward, whatever feels comfortable to you. And use your breath to relax into it, remembering what we talked about in the beginning with contentment. How that sometimes things are not comfortable, and I don't just mean physically, but I mean in life. We're in uncomfortable positions in our lives sometimes. We might be experiencing something that's just outside of our comfort zone. And instead of having anxiety in those moments, how would it feel to remind yourself that even in the uncomfortable moments, you can find contentment? We cannot control the things that's going on around us, but we can control our reaction. So using our breath, using our ability to shift our focus into what is good. The reassurance that even in the uncomfortable moments, you're not there forever. It too shall pass, as they say. Finding contentment. Breath in, start to help yourself up a little, walk it back. Now we're going to take our foot to the center, a little bit out of my frame here. We're going to bring ourselves into that half split pose. So let's begin it with our blocks in tall position, our hip over our knee, extending the left leg out this time. Knee is soft and not locked in, toes are lifted, and hips are squared. As we take a nice breath, breathe it in. As you exhale, maybe start to lower the blocks down to medium or even flat, reaching more toward the ankle, more towards your foot. And then you can start to soften your upper body, so maybe coming down to flat or taking the blocks away as you plant the hands down on the floor. And just softening your upper body. You can take the nose, drawing it toward the knee here. And checking in, are we still trying to pull that right hip forward? Let the left hip pull back. slowly start to bring our hands back, slide the foot back. You can use your blocks for support if you need them, and then bring your back knee or your front leg to the back, onto your knees. And then sit back and get ready for our next pose. Now our next pose is sleeping swan in the yin world, or pigeon in other yoga classes or hatha classes. But I'm going to show you an alternative. If you feel that pigeon or swan is a little more than your body's ready for, I can show you different things you can do to make that more comfortable for you to hold. So as we're coming into it, let's do it from just a tabletop position. Stretching out your right leg, let's start to pull the left knee in and kick the foot out. So you want the knee towards your wrist, the left knee is toward the left wrist, and the right leg is kicking it out. Then shifting or dropping your back leg into this position. So for those of you that feel like there's a big gap on this left side under your booty cheek, let's take the block and slide it underneath and give us some support there, okay? So if you don't feel that that's even enough to help you, you are welcome to switch it over to more of a sag or deer pose. So you can shift it over onto the left hip, and then your back leg, you can bend the knee and then start to reach forward as you rest it over. Now, it's completely up to you. Work on it and play around with it and see what you can tolerate. And then get into that position. Again, the block is also good for you. If you feel like resting forward, that you can't get your head to your forearms or to the mat, then the block is a good alternative. You can bring your forehead to the block and it takes a little bit of that pressure off, okay? I typically like to just bring my forearms and stack my forearms and then rest my head down onto my hands. So find what works for you, get into the position, and then start to breathe. Take a breath in, place your hands underneath your shoulders to lift up, tuck your back toe, draw the knee back under the hip. And we'll go to the other side with this. So stretching out the left leg, we're going to bring the right knee into the right wrist, kicking the foot out to the left side. Release it down using your blocks where you might need underneath your hip or for your forehead, or even coming into that deer or stag position of shifting over to your hip and bending your back leg. So find that spot, find the place, come down, rest it down. Like I said, if you want to stretch your arms and you need the block for support, you can do that, or you can do as I do with stacking the forearms and resting the head down. It's really about where you can find that place that you can hold still and just focus on your breath. Take a breath in, bring yourself up. Tuck your back toe, draw the knee back underneath. And then let's bring ourselves to a seated position. We're gonna lay back all the way onto our backs. And then let's just go into a TP stance with our knees. So knees to each other, pressing to each other, and the feet come out wide. Bringing our left hand to our heart, our right hand to our belly, and just focusing on our breath. So breathing in and breathing out. stretch your left leg out, hugging into your right knee. We're going to draw it across our body into a supine twist. Take your right arm out to the side. You also have the option, if you want to bend the bottom leg, the straight leg, and bring your hand down to grab to your foot, you still want to keep both shoulders to the mat. This is, I think this is called pulling the cat's tail. But you're welcome to come into that deeper stretch. It involves a little more of your quadricep, the front of your leg on that left side, as you're stretching the hip and the lower spine on the right side. If you want to incorporate a little neck with this one, you can turn your head to the right side and just hold it. Bringing your gaze back to the center, we're going to bring the knees into the chest, hug them in, rock a little side to side. Extending the right leg out, hug into the left leg. On your exhale, stack the hips, knee is crossing over to the other side. And I didn't mention, but you can always use a bolster or block for support if you need that underneath your knee. Option here to bend the bottom leg and reach for the foot, pulling the cat's tail. Both shoulders are planted onto the mat. You can turn the head to the left if you want to incorporate a little neck with this. bring your knees back to the center, head gaze back to the center, hug the knees in, maybe a little circular motion with your knees. Give that lower back some loves. Massage. Taking it both directions. And then stretching the legs out toward the corners, coming into Shavasana, using the props if you need them, getting into a comfortable pose. Let's lengthen those arms out, feel the shoulders release away from the ears, and then let the shoulders just relax down into the mat. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, feel the softness into your face, into your shoulders. Releasing through the arms and legs and sinking down into the lower back, feeling the glutes relax, the hips soften. Focusing on our breath. Big deep breath in. Long, slow exhale out. Big breath in. Long, slow exhale. And then coming into a comfortable breath. Staying here in Savasana for as long as you want to stay. As I conclude my class, my part of it, I want to thank you for joining me in this Yin class. Stay in Shavasana for just as long as your body will allow